Things were just starting to get just a little bit more exciting, but not in a great way. A few weeks ago, I flew out to a ranch in East Texas to a thing called Reklaw fly-in. And it's this famous fly-in in Texas, and literally hundreds of airplanes are all converging on this piece of land in this really cool just grass airstrip in East Texas. And so as you can imagine, as everyone's kind of going to the same dot on the map, I'm about to get thrown into the madness of non-towered communications with a lot of other people. And I think this was a really, really good reminder for me in safety in several regards that I think are worth sharing here. So as we're headed out to Reklaw, about 30 miles out, I can already hear that the traffic pattern is pretty busy, but not just with people landing, but a lot of people doing low passes over the runway several times before they actually land. So a lot is happening. And as we continue approaching, I decided it's workable for us to fit into the pattern. There's a few other planes there, two of which are singles, and then one is actually a flight of 3. So that one was a little easier to spot. I spotted the flight of 3, and we entered a 45 left downwind behind them, but my head was very much on the swivel, making sure we were good. I mean, there could be other planes here that aren't actually talking on the radio, and they don't legally have to. So just because you think you're hearing everybody, that might not actually be everybody. So this is a good time to remember that if you don't like what you're seeing, like, you always try to have a plan B when you're going to the pattern. My plan B here was, hey, if it's just insane when we get there, we're just gonna hang out like 10 miles away, do some circles, and wait for a more appropriate time for us to enter the pattern. I got burned in the past. I mean, I really scared myself in the airplane one time, not having a plan B in the mountains, and I got stuck into a bad place that I really didn't want to be because I didn't really think through ahead of time, like, hey, what's my out here? So I just really try to fly with that in mind now, knowing what plan B is. And so going into Reklaw, I had a plan B, didn't have to use it, but I'm glad I had it. Now that we're in the pattern, we line up to do a low pass down the runway as most other people were doing when they arrived. And I already had friends waiting for us on the ground. I knew that they were already there. And it was interesting, like on short final, once I saw the runway and I saw all the people lined up and everything, I was immediately tempted to just get more aggressive than I otherwise would have been and like speed up and do a really low pass and just kind of this like excitement of like, oh, I want to be the guy that's screaming down the runway, going really fast and doing cool stuff. And I'm a pretty conservative pilot, but I felt that urge and I really just had to take a breath for a second and say like, dude, no, we're not doing that. Like, do your low pass, do like a conservative flyby and whatever, but like, you're not getting aggressive here. We're not doing anything stupid. And so I just really had to check myself and slow down and say like, hey, you're in the moment here, but you are going to stay safe. We're not doing anything aggressive. But then that urge even came back once we came back around to land. Like, I don't know if it was just peer pressure or I wanted to show that I wanted to try to demonstrate my skills or something, but I kind of felt this urge to be like, hey, you need to make the shortest landing of the day. You need to show off and show them that you know how to do this or something. And again, I just really had to check myself and say, hey, we got like 3,500 feet of runway here. There's a lot of people around. There's no reason to come in like 6 inches above the trees and try to put it down in 100 feet. Like, there's literally no reason to do that right now. So in the midst of all these distractions, you got people, you got airplanes, you got RVs, you got dogs running, like, just in the scheme of things, like, your priority right here, Charlie, is safety. And I really had to just have that mental conversation with myself and say, dude, you need to do a normal landing. It's going to be fine. You got to tune everything else out. So I made a normal landing and pulled off the runway and just took a sigh of relief that, okay, I was a little stressed about getting into the pattern here. Everything went well. We got the airplane parked, but things were about to get a lot more hectic. So I met my friends and we spent the day watching the airplanes come and go, and it was just awesome. I mean, something really unique about just getting to sit in a field under the wing of the airplane and watch the day go by and the airplanes go by, and everyone was just simply there to celebrate aviation. That was very, very cool. Now, towards the end of the day, more and more people started to arrive, and I noticed that things started to get a little bit more aggressive, I'll say. Like, the flybys started to go like a little faster. All of a sudden, like, they're going, and then you got people trying to take off, and then people doing full stop landing, and then you got formation flights coming in right behind them, and the formation flights are getting a little bit closer. Like, people are just starting to push the envelope a little bit, and it was cool to watch because I thought I'd never do that, but that's pretty cool to see that. I've never seen that before, and it went kind of from that appreciation to then realizing, oh, wait a second, I got to leave here in a little bit, and I got to somehow fit into all of this in a safe way, and things were just starting to get just a little bit more exciting, but not in a great way. Like, there were people aborting takeoffs because people were just walking across the runway. Like, the thought about, oh, this is kind of getting unsafe started to enter my mind. And so I was just starting to pay a lot of attention on how am I going to get out of here. So when I got back in the airplane and we started up, the first thing we had to do was to actually taxi across the runway to the west side of the runway, which was kind of being used as the established taxiway. But keep in mind, people are still taking off and doing low passes and everything. There's just kind of one straight strip there that everyone's using as the taxiway and the runway. But the problem was where we were, you couldn't see over this hump of the runway to know if anyone was coming. So in this moment, I just had to take another deep breath and slow down. Like, I didn't want to make any stupid moves here and get hit as I'm crossing the runway. That'd be a bad end to the day. So I just sat there for several minutes assessing the pattern and just listening to the radio. I said, hey, we're just gonna sit here for a minute and we're just gonna listen. I wanna make 100% sure I've got like a really good inventory of where everyone was in the pattern. You know, all the people on downwind, all the people doing low passes, all the people making full stop. I didn't wanna miss something. And eventually we taxied across the runway without issue and started taxiing down to the parting end of the runway. But in doing so, I swear a steerman almost clipped our wing twice. Once on a low pass and the second when he was actually landing. And we were kind of wedged in between the people that are parked on the side of the runway and then the active runway itself. And I thought, man, this is getting a little aggressive for me. Like, I'm ready to get out of here. So getting to the departing end of the runway, you know, things feel like they're speeding up around me. And I was really just trying, I'm not trying to take credit for this, but I really just had a necessity, was really just trying to slow my thoughts down and think, okay, the natural reaction here is you want to speed up, like things are happening, like go, 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 go. But sometimes in those moments, like that's the best time to slow down and just think, hey, we don't have to be forced into anything here. It's our job to decide when it is safe to depart. And so try to do a similar thing I did before taxiing. I said, hey, we're going to just sit here in the departing end. We're just going to wait and we're going to play it really safe here when we know there's a safe window between all the low passes and the full stop landings and the other departures and the different things. We're just going to sit here until we've got a really good inventory of what's going around and we're perfectly confident that we have a safe departure window. And in the middle of that, I noticed this guy walk out there and he was in a neon vest. I don't even know if he had a radio or not, but he's kind of giving me the thumbs up like, hey man, you're good. And my reaction initially was like, okay, yeah, hey, he says we're good, let's go. And then I kind of had to snap out of me like, wait a second, like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I can't outsource my safety to him just because the guy in the neon vest is smiling saying thumbs up. He might even be saying thumbs up like, cool airplane, bro. Like, you have no clue. And so I had to tell myself like, wait a second, this is not the guy who's gonna tell me when it's safe to depart or not. Ultimately, I'm in charge here. I have to be in charge because if something happens, it's my fault. So we waited for a few minutes. We had a good window to depart. And so we started departing and like, it was just crazy because I was trying to think of all the different airplanes around me. And I was also trying to make sure no one was walking across the runway and have like an aborted takeoff like we had seen earlier in the day. So there was just a lot happening. We got off the ground, we departed mid-runway heading off of that. And I can't, again, kind of a common theme, I just had to take a sigh of relief and think, man, that was so important to just slow down there and take charge of your own safety because no one else is in charge of keeping you safe other than you. And that's my point of this story. It's so easy to forget, but you and we are in charge of our own safety of the flight. It's funny how it's easy to forget, but it is easy to forget. And this is a healthy reminder. But you know, one of the quickest ways that the situations can become unsafe at non-towered airports is through poor communication on the radio. And in the video on the screen, I'm going to talk about some of the dangerous things that can happen and how we can avoid it, how we can fix it. So I'll see you over in that video.